Welcome everybody back to a podcast about movies. Had to hit him with the Disney intro this time. It just seemed fitting, as we are talking some Disney today. But I am not alone, as always, joined by Austin. Austin, how's it going?
Hey, no, it's going good. I've seen a lot of stuff this weekend, and I managed to somehow squeeze in these, 65, 70-minute movies we're going to talk about, while I'm just at the gym and whatnot. So glad I was able to do that. But yeah, these movies I have not gone back to in a minute. Some of them maybe not since my childhood. We'll talk about which ones I'm the most familiar with. There's one that I saw more than the other ones, but yeah, this is an interesting mix of stuff here, and certainly a trip to go back to as a 38-year-old now and watch them in adult eyes.
Yeah, it is. It's always interesting to go back to some of these, older animated movies. See if they hold up. See if the animation holds up, the story, whatnot. Of course, we are talking the first. Well, not the first four. It's the first four minus Fantasia, just because it didn't kind of, fit in. Because we wanted those four narrative movies, not the concert feature. I love Fantasia though. Like I can turn Fantasia on and watch it. I think it's really good and a lot of fun. But we are talking those first four like feature length narrative features. Yeah, like you said, I think Snow White might be the longest at like an hour and 20 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, really easy breezy movies to get through. And yeah,
Well, are they though? Because I'll talk about one of them. One of them felt like I was watching it for 3 hours. I'll tell you which one. It took me like 3 tries to get through. I'll talk about which one, but it took me a while. I was struggling a little bit during one of them to pay attention. We'll talk about it. Yeah.
But no, anybody who knows me knows that animation is one of my favorite genres, and so for our birthdays, we kind of did a little give and take a couple weeks ago. We talked some horror remakes for Austin, and so he is graciously returning the favor and letting me talk some Disney. We've talked about the Renaissance before, but we haven't talked, about the ones that have kicked it off. So that's what we're gonna do today.
So maybe someday we'll go to like the 50s and 60s ones or something. Those ones like
those ones are also really good too. Yeah,
it's been a while since I've seen some of those. What is that, like Sleeping Beauty and Alice in Wonderland and some of those ones. I know Jungle Book's one of your all-time favorites, and yeah, some of those middle ones I haven't seen in a while either. Yeah. So that would be interesting to go back to like Alice in Wonderland and Sleeping Beauty and a few of those that I haven't seen in a minute. So maybe we'll keep that in the back of the brain. Maybe someday we'll do like 4 of those middle ones or something.
There's some like I couldn't tell you the last time I watched 101 Dalmatians or Peter Pan.
Yeah. I was gonna say I have my little set right here. Yeah, 101 Dalmatians, Sleeping. I love Cinderella, the original Cinderella. Peter Pan. There's like Lady and the Tramp. There's even that Winnie the Pooh movie from like the 70s. Fox and the Hound. All that kind of stuff. So we could kind of gradually work our way through the Disney like animated catalog, up to that Renaissance if we wanted to, here and there, hit like another couple of 4-packs here and there, and work through some of those. I wouldn't mind doing it because I'm due for a rewatch on a lot of those movies.
That'd be fun. I think the only ones I don't go back to, like hardly ever, are those like package films from the 40s. Like there's a couple of good shorts in there, but as a whole movie, you don't need to. Like I'll do the Johnny Appleseed one. I think that one's a lot of fun. The one Jack and the Beanstalk type one is cool. But other than that, they just needed stuff to crank out during the war so they could.
You gotta have something to tack on to the newsreels and the musical that they were showing that week or whatever was going on. And the Max Fleischer Superman cartoon or whatever you added on, the Goofy cartoon, whatever was going on at the time.
Yeah, which is probably a reason that they can make these so short, is because there was a lot of stuff added on in theaters at the time.
Well, yeah, if you went and this is more of like a film history thing. Obviously, I'm not that old. I was not there for it. But how it worked back in like the 30s or the 40s is you would go to like a matinee So a lot of times the kids and the families would go to like the 1 o'clock show of whatever it was, right, on Saturday or Sunday. You would go see, say it was like Snow White or Pinocchio or whatever it was. And yeah, they were like 70 minutes, right? So there wasn't really like a lot there, but they would tack on, you would get like a newsreel for the adults. It would show like literally like a montage newsreel. You would get a short cartoon. So either a short Disney cartoon or some, Woody Woodpecker cartoon or whatever it was, like back in some Little Lulu or whatever. And then you would get like maybe even like a Laurel and Hardy or like a Three Stooges kind of comedy short. You would get a package of stuff. And so it would become like a 2.5 or a 3 hour thing. That's why back in the day it was called a feature presentation, because the feature was the Snow White or the Pinocchio, but you would have all the stuff that would lead up to it and until you got to that.
Yeah. So so let's we'll kick it off with the one that started it all, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This isn't one that I've gone back to very often. Like, this is one where I recognize its importance. Like, I'm just gonna start off. I don't like none of these movies that we're gonna talk about today are like in my 128. I don't like. I'm not over the moon about any of these, but I like these movies and I respect these movies.
Yeah.
But
I like one of these a lot. I like one of them, and two of them I'll just say I respect more than I love personally. Like, I'll respect what they did in history more than going back to watch them now didn't do a lot for me. I'll say that, right. Including this one. Okay. So I'll just kick it off with that. But please, you go first though. I don't want to interrupt you. You go ahead.
Yeah, no, I can totally get that too, because some people would call this the greatest animated movie ever made. I'm like, well, it was the first one, so I mean, I don't know about the greatest. I mean, I recognize and respect its importance, but plot wise, it's a basic plot. This evil queen wants to murder this girl because she's prettier than her, and so she runs and hides and finds this house with these 7 dwarfs, and there we go.
And she's still alive, and the huntsman fails, so she eventually has to go do the dirty work herself and tries to poison her with an apple, and the dwarves go after her. Look, there's like 15 minutes worth of plot in this movie, stretched out to about
there really is.
It really is. You could sum up the plot of this movie in about 3 sentences. Like, it's not a lot actually going on plot wise, but I think that's going to be a similar theme running through all 4 of these movies. All 4 of these movies have about 15 or 20 minutes worth of plot kind of stretched out to a feature length, like, to be honest.
Yeah. So this one, like you said, it's a basic plot, pretty simple, but I do think there's some fun moments here. I think the songs are really good. But like I said, it's not one that I go back to very often, but I'm gonna probably say that about all 4 of these movies that we're talking about. Like, I recognize and respect their importance. So there are, like I said, there are moments that I really like about these movies. But as a whole, I'm like, they're probably solid, 3.5, 4s out of 5s for me. So I can watch them, have a good time with them. I especially love, I think the Hi-Ho song is just a lot of fun. And then I think that sequence where they're just all in the living room, with singing and dancing, I think that's a lot of fun. I don't know if they're going to include the end of this movie in the remake, just because of how sensitive people are nowadays. Like, oh well, she didn't give consent for him to kiss her. Like, that's no, he should be locked up. I'm like, well, first of all, it's 1937. So
first of all, she was dead at the time, or they thought she was dead.
Yeah, it's a weird argument that I've heard.
It's not like she was in a coma. She's dead.
She was poisoned.
She was poisoned, and they believe she's in a coffin. She's dead. Like, he's technically even. It's more just about, it's kind of gross. He's kissing like a dead girl, like, technically, but it's not like a sexual assault thing. She's dead, but right. Okay. No, it's. My more problems about the movie is a couple of things structurally with, like, we don't get to know the Prince Charming character at all. He's in this movie for all of 3 minutes. I mean, he's in like a minute and a half of the opening. He sings like half a song, sees her, she runs off, and that's all we see of him till like the end of the movie, till he just walks in up to her and kisses her at the end. Like, we assume through maybe some dialogue that he's been eyeballing her for a while, like he knows who she is, and he's maybe thinking about like, you know, courting her or whatever, but he just hasn't done it yet, because she's kind of well known, I guess. And then, but yeah, before anything can happen, the thing kind of kicks off with the queen telling the huntsman to literally, it's kind of disturbing, bring me her heart in this box. So rip her heart out of her chest and put it in this box. Okay, that's pretty messed up when you think about it. Interesting.
Amazing how far kids' movies come.
Yeah, that was odd. And then he ends up like putting a pig's heart in there to like fool her or whatever. Yeah, and then we never really see him again. But yeah, I will say again, the animation is really the animation in all four of these is what really held up for me and like kept me going through a lot of these. I think the animation is unique again for the time, especially to go back and watch it. It's way better than you think it would be. There's the sequence when she first runs into the woods where all the trees and stuff are like becoming like monsters and trying to grab her and stuff. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like for what it was, like, it looked great. All this stuff's like grabbing at her and everything with the lightning effects. That looked really good. The actual human characters, like the designs again, looks like these old Max Fleischer, like Superman cartoons that I kind of like this old animation style that I dig. Each of the dwarves have like a unique look and a personality, so like I like that. Just for me, my main negatives are the movie is once it settles down and like gets there are just long sequences of like not much going on for me where it's okay, we're gonna clean the house now with all the animals, right? And they clean the house for like 15 minutes. Like it takes forever. And then, okay, we're going to see the dwarves like working in the mine and walking home. And they walk home forever. And then they get to the home and they know somebody's been there because everything's been cleaned up, right? So they're sneaking around the house looking for her for like 10 minutes. It takes forever for them to find her. I'm like, just walk upstairs. She's right there. Like, it doesn't take that long. Then she tells them to go, like, they have a little chat. She tells them to wash up for dinner. They have like a 10-minute sequence of them washing up for dinner. Like, I swear to God, this movie just goes on forever and ever and ever. And I'm like, dude, I lost my mind during the hand washing and like washing up for dinner sequence. I was like, oh my God, can we just get to it? Like, this, if anything, this movie could have been shorter. I was like, dude, let's speed it up. Like, I get it's made for kids, and kids will probably like it. Kids will enjoy watching the Seven Dwarfs like goofing around and being silly and, you know, knocking each other on the head and like, you know, washing up whatever. And again, I enjoyed the personalities and whatnot. I like their interaction. But man, watching this as like a 38-year-old was like excruciating because there's just nothing happening for long stretches of this movie. And I'm like, we don't get back to the queen for like 50 minutes. Dude, she's in the opening. She sends a huntsman out, and then it's like 50 minutes later, she goes and makes the poison apple, like the crux of the movie. And even that takes like 12 minutes for her to make the apple. And I'm like, oh my God, can we just get to it? So it's just, I was more frustrated as far as like the pacing of this movie for me was like excruciating. Like I was dying in the middle of this movie to where I felt like, it's an 80-minute movie. I felt like I've been watching it for like 3 hours. I just took forever to get going. Get that. So I mean, again, I'm not knocking it as a movie. Like the animation's good. I understand it's the first one. They're basing it off a fairy tale that's probably 10 pages long. You know what I mean? Probably, there's not much there, so they're having to like stretch for time. I get it. So I'm not like knocking the technical work of anybody involved or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I just think this is one that's suited for like 6-year-olds, dude. Like 6-year-olds will dig this, but like if you're watching this as an adult, you're gonna have a rough time.
It's not for a 38-year-old or even a 34-year-old adult.
I just mean sitting down to like pay attention and watch this movie. I was dying. But like if you got a kid in the room and he's like playing with his toys and you got this on in the background and he looks up and he's looking at the dwarves and he's playing with the toys and he looks up and the animals are doing the thing. You know what I mean? Like a kid will be perfectly fine with that. So that's my main takeaway from a lot of these movies. I think it's good for kids.
I think that's going to be true for all four of them. And I think that's something that they got better at, is including stuff that both kids and adults
can
enjoy in their movies. So especially once we get to the Renaissance. We've talked about that. Go check that
Well,
out.
even some of those 50s ones, like I love the Peter Pan movie. I love the Cinderella movie just because, again, there's more plot, there's more going on, there's better pace, there's more character development, like things going on with that. I think they started catching on eventually that, yeah, you had to kind of include a little more plot and a little more things going on for the adults in the audience. Like it couldn't just be the simplest thing just stretched out with long sequences of not doing much. Like you had to keep things moving. And I think they got better at that over time.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, that's Snow White. Yeah, it's a movie that we might respect more than we like, but I still think, like you said, it's a great kids movie.
Yeah,
that's all
these are perfectly fine for kids. I have no problem with that. Like I'm not crapping on it anyway. If my niece, when she grows up, like wants to put on any of these, like I'd have no problem. I wouldn't be in excruciating pain or anything. I just like I would not be paying attention that much.
Right.
Like I would be on my phone, like doing other things. And there's the thing, that sort of thing.
Yes. Now this is one that I'm curious about because I know that you've said in the past before that you really enjoy Pinocchio, but we've also talked this week, and you've mentioned that you have things to say about Pinocchio. So now I'm really curious.
All right, it was more again catching things as an adult that I didn't catch as a kid. Okay, first off, Pinocchio has much more going on, so I'll at least give it credit for that. So there's at least some more things happening. You get to know Geppetto a little bit. You get to see him, around his shop. So, he's like a wood guy. I really liked all the little trinkets he had and all the clocks and stuff. I was digging all that, like all the goofy, crazy clocks he has with like the guy with the pop gun and the bird and like the dude trying to chop like the turkey and he keeps pulling his head back, like the mother spanking the kid. Like all those were hilarious. Like I loved all that stuff. I liked Figaro the cat. Like I was enjoying like his interactions with like the fish and all that. Like I enjoyed this little group of characters. Jiminy Cricket was interesting. The first, like I would say third or 2/3 of this movie is not bad as far as like the characters go. It's interesting when Pinocchio becomes a kid and starting to learn it. My problem with the movie was, and I know they would get better with this later, there's not a single consequence for any of the villains in this movie. They all get away with it. They all get away with it if you think about it. Every single one of them. And the Blue Fairy gets mad at Pinocchio despite the fact that he's been sentient for about 6 hours and doesn't know anything. Jiminy Cricket sucks at his job. He's terrible. He's a terrible conscience. There's literally the first time he goes out to be his conscience, and Pinocchio starts wandering off with Honest John, right? The con artist of the movie. He like follows him and he catches up to him and he's like, all right, just be, nice and maybe just say, I can't go today, I gotta get back to school, whatever. And he says the wrong thing. And then Jiminy Cricket just gives up. He's like, all right, well, we'll do whatever you want. Like, you're a terrible conscience, bro. Like, it's your fault. He doesn't know anything. And then the Blue Fairy gets mad at him, gets mad at Pinocchio and is like, well, you were a bad boy, Pinocchio. And it's like, no, get mad at the other guy who knows the world. This dude doesn't know anything.
Right. Like, he's been alive for 6 hours, like you said. Like, what does he know?
He doesn't know anything. He knows nothing. He knows nothing of the world. He knows nothing of morality. He knows nothing of how people take advantage of people. Like Jiminy knows this stuff, and he's the one who ends up like inadvertently kind of getting Pinocchio into most of his troubles that he gets into. And then if you think about all the villains in the movie, the Honest John and his little sidekick guy, they sell Pinocchio essentially to the Stromboli guy, and then later they come up with the scheme with the coachman guy, and they face no consequences. Stromboli, the worst he gets is he tries to exploit Pinocchio and like take him with him across the country, and Pinocchio escapes. But like he's still free to just do whatever, so like he gets away. And then the coachman guy, who they never even get a name to, this guy who's literally human trafficking children and turning them into donkeys. And then one of them, I noticed the cages they were putting them in. One was like sold to the salt mine, sold to the circus, like sold to the whatever. I'm like, these dudes are in little slavery for the rest of their lives as donkeys, and he faces zero consequences whatsoever for it. He gets away with it. None. We never see him again after Pinocchio gets back home. Like, that frustrated me just as an adult. But again, I know they're basing it on the story, and I know the story's a little messed up that they're basing it on. And they probably weren't, again, thinking about that stuff like they think about it now, with like how you have to kind of come full circle to things, and you have to wrap up these storylines, and the villains have to kind of pay for their actions and whatnot. So that was just interesting to watch now. It's like I was just like, what? The plot line was frustrating me more than anything. But there's more going on. I was engaged with it because I was like, what is this movie? This is insanity. Like while I was watching it.
Right. I can't remember if they did anything different with that in the remake. Because the remake was pretty much shot for shot as far as Pinocchio goes.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was the exact same. I don't want to go back and rewatch the remake to find out.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go watch the Jonathan Taylor Thomas one from the 90s. See if that one does anything different. I don't know.
If I'm going to go watch a new version of Pinocchio, I'll watch
the Guillermo del Toro one.
Yeah, I'll watch that one instead. But no, like yeah, I mean, it's like you said, yeah, that stuff can it's frustrating, and it's also kind of fun to point out like the things we find in movies now, as opposed to when we watch them as
dude,
kids. But yeah,
it was blowing my mind. Like every 10 minutes, I was like, at least again, I was more engaged with this, so I was like, there's more going on, and the characters are more interesting. So I was like, at least a little more entertained by this overall, even though some of the plot lines were kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I don't think Geppetto gets enough credit when it comes to movie dads. Like he clearly cares, and I love that in the Del Toro version we get kind of a backstory as to why he's creating this puppet, which I'm sure is in the source material. I haven't actually.
I think I know the source material is pretty dark for what it is, and that Del Toro was more straight to the source material for it having that darker edge to it and that darker tone. Which because isn't in that one like his kid dies in like the bombing or something like that?
Yeah.
Like it's like he actually lost a kid, which is why he makes like this puppet and all the stuff that he makes to kind of fill that void in his life.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think I mean, obviously that's a little heavy for a kids movie in 1940, but selling kids into slavery isn't. Movies are weird sometimes. But back to I don't think Geppetto gets enough credit as like a caring father. I mean, dude got swallowed by a whale.
He got swallowed by a whale trying to go find Pinocchio. Like dude was ready to like sail the earth, I guess, looking for Pinocchio. I don't know where he was going, but he was like ready to just go from country to country, I guess, looking for him. So I mean, kudos to him. He cares. I'll give him that. And he does try to do the right things while he is a dad for all of an hour before Pinocchio gets like sold to Stromboli or whatever, And again, at least the characters, like the villain characters, are interesting and kind of scary and like are a little more effective. Like the Honest John guy, I like the con artist angle of it. I like his actor song. I had that actor song in my head for like all weekend. The hi diddly dee, an actor's life for me. Like that little thing he's always like going into. Like I thought that was fun. The Stromboli thing reminded me of the Vinny Vidice sketch from SNL, where like every time something goes wrong, he just says like Italian gibberish. It's like, oh, and like whatever, he just goes off and something happens. Like that was at least interesting. And the coachman guy was like genuinely kind of terrifying, like sucking on the cigar and like throwing the coins around, and like the way he is locking all the donkeys up at the end like that. And I wonder what his cost overhead is to like run an entire amusement park with all this free food and this free cigarettes and tobacco that he's feeding all these kids, just to turn. I mean, I guess there must be demand for donkeys. Like you must make a decent profit off of it to keep that place rolling. It was kind of weird to see a movie where a bunch of like 10-year-old kids are just chewing tobacco and smoking cigars and drinking beer, like at this Pleasure Island place. I was like, that's out there for a G-rated 1940 movie, but okay.
No, these movies nowadays would like at least PG. They're not G-rated. I mean, if Frozen is getting a PG rating or whatever, Pinocchio is. I've had some people tell me before, like watching the kids turn into donkeys, or there's even a scene in the next movie we'll talk about, like,
Yeah.
and like that kind of scarred me as a child for a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, I can understand why. It's
No, because it
kind of
the way they
terrifying as
do
a
it
kid.
is interesting because his lampwick friend or whatever, like it starts out casually, like the ears grow out a little bit, and then like the tail comes out.
Mhm.
When he starts to like realize it, and he like sees his hands like turn to hooves, then they go to that shadow sequence where it's just like him in front of like a silhouette or whatever, and he's like screaming as he's like the rest of him turning into a thing. I was like, yeah, that is pretty horrifying, like for what
Yeah,
it is. That's some
I
body
can see.
horror right there. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
extreme.
kind of scary.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I think this one also has good music, like you said. The animation, it does hold up. You know, 84 years later now, or
Yeah.
whenever this
The
movie came.
Monstro whale looks amazing at the end. I
Yeah,
thought the whale looks great, and that whole sequence was pretty cool. Like I like the Monstro stuff at the end. I thought that was great.
yeah. So kudos to all the animators. I mean, they're not watching this, I'm sure, but whatever. Yeah, kudos to them. Like props to the animation department for these early Disney movies, because I think they did a really solid job. And yeah, music is great. Obviously, "When You Wish Upon a Star" is still like the Disney song
Mhm.
now. It's kind of their anthem. So yeah, really good music. Really like fun villains, but yeah, like you said, some consequences, please.
Yeah, I would like some at least one of the three to have some kind of consequences,
Yeah.
please. At least somebody. I something, anything. But yeah, we just move on. It's like, all right, okay.
And also, let's make a choice. Are we using people, or are we using talking animals? Let's pick one. I don't know what kind of world are we living in here in
Yeah,
Pinocchio.
yeah.
But yeah, no, really fun. That might be my favorite out of these four, Pinocchio. So, but this one, it's got a 65-minute runtime going for it. Um, it's about a baby elephant in the circus who discovers he can fly with the help of a feather.
Yeah.
The end.
The end. Yeah. And after he learns how to fly, he apparently becomes famous via montage and the end.
Yeah. Which this is, I mean, this and the Jungle Book, which
uh,
is weird because like the Jungle Book is one of my top 10 Disney animated movies, but I think these are the two that like their remakes are probably a little bit better
okay.
than the original. Like I understand why some people would not put the remake above this one, just because, well, it's just a simple 65-minute. I can put it
Mhm.
on, have a good time, get out of there. But I think because they do so much different in the remake and add a lot more plot to it,
Right.
um, I think it works. And no, it's not just my Tim Burton bias. Because
Sure.
when I first saw it, I actually didn't like the remake. I was like, oh, that was kind of weird. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But on rewatches, I was like, oh, you know what? I liked what they added. I think they made some really good choices because yeah, I was like, how are you going to remake a 65-minute movie that
It's
has
almost 2
such a
hours.
simple plot? Yeah. Well, you add a bunch of human characters and change the plot completely. Other than the fact that the elephant can fly with the help of a feather.
Yeah. Well, it's not about the feather, Jacob. He had the power in him all along. That was
He
just
just
the
needs the courage.
yeah, he just needs the courage. Yeah, that's the proxy thing of it. Yeah, that's the placebo. It's not the actual reason. No, this is the one out of the four that I actually owned as a kid. So I've seen Dumbo quite a bit. Now I haven't watched it in probably 15 years or so. But this is the one I had the most memory of that I knew almost beat for beat. That I did watch a lot. So this is the one that I kind of connected to and I was interested to go back. And yeah, the plot's pretty thin. I mean, it's this circus group, traveling around, and yeah, everybody's, gets their stork kid delivered to him, and yeah, Dumbo's got big ears, and that's the thing. And he doesn't even really start to fly till like the last 10 minutes of the movie,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, I mean, they find themselves up in a tree, and then they think they hypothesize that they might have flown up there, and then just throw them off a cliff to try it. So that could have been disastrous.
Right.
If they
What if
actually
we're wrong?
Oh yeah, just try it, just see what happens. And luckily, I mean, it works out. But yeah, I mean, this is the one I just remember the most imagery from. I think some of the sequences are again really well animated, like the sequence where
Hmm.
they're trying to set up the tent in the thunderstorm is pretty damn well animated during all that. Like some of the train stuff is really good. I just like some of the sequences within the circus. The clown sequence was like fun. I like that, where the act that they're doing with like all the clowns running around trying to put out the fire and all the little gags they have where, one's like roasting a hot dog. The other one's, is watering his flower in front of the house. The other one grabs a pump of something, but it's just more gasoline to put on the fire. Like all this stuff was funny. Like that's still because that's just like Three Stooges type stuff that I like.
Right.
But yeah, so I dug all that. The baby mine sequence I think is still pretty like heartbreaking for what it is. Like, when she's like reaching out to like swing him, outside of her like little cage thing, which by the way, she was completely justified in like wrecking shop with all those people
absolutely.
literally like trying to like tear dude's ears off. I was like, I would defend my kid too if that was the case, you know what I mean? But obviously it's like this animal thing, so they lock the mom up. Luckily she gets out at the end, so at least they resolved that and she wasn't still locked up. I was like, I don't remember her being in the end. Is she out of the thing by the end of the movie? And then she actually was. I was like, okay, go, thank God. But yeah, I mean there's not much going on. I think the thing most people talk about, Jacob, is the drunk pink elephant sequence is like the thing most people remember from this, because that's also, I guess, nightmare fuel. It was never nightmare fuel for me. I just thought it was trippy and weird, and I actually kind of liked it, because even watching it today, and I was watching it this morning, I was just like, the animation on this is just cool, like, and all the different types of elephants. Like you have two stuck together that are like plaid and they pull apart, and there's a macho giant elephant that's made up of elephant heads, and then there's ones that are splitting apart in half. Like I was like, what is going on? This is just a weird, I don't know. Somebody at Disney was just like, let's just make the trippiest, weirdest sequence we could possibly make ever. Give me all your sketches you have of goofy elephants, while you're high, and like we'll put all these in the movie. But it's still an interesting sequence. And so yeah, there's not a whole lot plot wise going on, but I think it's cute enough for what it is, and there's enough cool sequences. I think it kind of keeps it moving. So, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it's probably just my sentimental favorite out of these. Going back to Pinocchio had the most going on, so I probably enjoyed that one the most out of the four, as far as, enough going on that I was like more entertained overall. But Dumbo was the one that like I've lived with the longest. Yeah. Which I have not seen the remake, by the way. I probably should. I've not seen it, but the cast is good. I probably should.
It's got a really good cast. I quite enjoy the cast, and I was curious while I was watching. I was like, are they even going to include the pink elephant scene? Because it's kind of like one of the most memorable parts of the animated movie, and they do include it, and I think it's really cool the way they were able to include that sequence. So, yeah, no, I mean, I don't I don't really have much else to add on Dumbo, because I mean that's
again, all you could do is just say, hey, this sequence was kind of cool. This sequence was kind of cool. There's not much going on.
Oh, again, like every sequence that you mentioned is like, yeah, no,
it's good.
I agree completely. So I know, again, good animation, and yeah, that baby mine sequence is heartbreaking, and that's such a beautiful song.
Yeah, so, good song.
I used to, before I worked at this new center, the center I worked at, I would play a Disney lullaby album that they have on Spotify, and Baby Mine is one of them. So
that's a song you can fall asleep to pretty easily. Yeah, it's a good one.
So, all right. And then the final movie of these four, we have Bambi. So yeah, this is going to be the only one of these to get a horror remake so far.
Yes.
So yeah, because I think we got the Pinocchio remake, we got the Dumbo remake. We've had Snow White, not the remake of the anime, but we've had Snow White in other films.
We're gonna get a Peter Pan horror movie from all these from Jagged Edge. So they might get around to like a Dumbo or something if they're public domain enough. I don't know if like what stories they're based on, but maybe.
I'm pretty sure Pinocchio is, so I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Pinocchio got added in. That's why there's so many Pinocchio movies.
Well, Pinocchio is getting one from Jagged Edge. They did that in the announcement.
Oh, that's right. Pinocchio Unstringed or something like that.
Yeah, whatever it is. But, they said he's going to be doing kills with his nose and stuff. Like, that's coming. Pinocchio and Bambi are part of it. Peter Pan's part of it. I was just saying, I don't know. Was Dumbo based on like a a story, or was that
I
a completely original? I don't
don't
remember.
remember if Dumbo was or not. I'm not sure.
It's based on like it says a novelty toy and a short story, maybe. So I don't know what the rights are as far as that goes. But I'm sure if Jagged Edge had the rights to it, they would make a flying elephant that dive bombed and killed people, with giant
Oh
ears or
yeah.
something, squashing people with giant ears or whatever. He could do something with that, I'm sure. Dumbo
I
the flying terror or something.
I I can just see it in the Pinocchio movie. I'm not gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the kills. I really wouldn't. Like
Yeah,
right eye to eye or something, like right in the eye, something like that, face to face. Yeah.
don't worry, you're safe.
You're safe with me. Woo!
Ooh.
Yeah.
But no, back to Bambi, and
Uh-huh.
speaking of light on plot, this is basically
Oh yeah.
a movie about Bambi and his mom, and they live in the forest.
And this is just Bambi growing up and kind of a coming of age movie, and that's about
Yeah,
it. Yeah, there's not
going through the
going on.
four seasons. We see him
Yeah.
in spring, we see him in winter, discovering what snow and ice is.
Uh-huh.
With Thumper and Flower, and
Yeah.
I was rewatching this. Okay, this kind of got me. Why did the skunk
Uh-huh.
give Bambi the sweet eyes when Bambi was like probably a week old or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That part was kind of weird.
It was like, "Oh, you're cute. I'll call you Flower." And he's like, "Flower?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
What?
okay.
Uh,
All
but
right.
that part was kind of weird. But yeah, um, again, good animation. I love the use of music in this one. Actually, like during
Mhm.
that storm sequence, anytime like the lightning would hit and the
Yeah, yeah.
music would swell a little bit. I like that. But this is another one. Like I thought this conversation was going to be a lot more exciting because I was like, oh yeah, no, we got the four classics that kind of kicked Disney off, and it's like, oh, going back and rewatching them, like, oh yeah, no, I guess they are kind of
Yeah.
thin on plot, and there's not really much to dive into. Um, and this is another one. Like, yeah, this Dumbo and Bambi is just kind of like we kind of see them grow up a little bit, and
It's just more
that's
like
it.
they're just more like character pieces, like, we
Yeah,
just follow the character for a little while in a piece of their life, and that's really all it is, like, and just some of their life experience. It's not really like a plot of they go here and do this and they go here and do that. It's just like, no, it's Bambi is just living in the woods with his mom and making some friends, with his little buddies, and there's a misnomer that goes around because I told um, two people in my work asked me, they all kind of know that I do these shows. They were like, "Oh, what kind of shows you got going on this week?" And I was like, "Oh, we're doing, the old Disney movies." And I rattled them off, and they're like, "Oh, Bambi. Oh, yeah, no, when his mom dies in the first 5 minutes." I'm like, "No, it takes like 45 minutes. It's like not in the first 5 minutes."
oh, it's
Because I had remembered that as well, and that was me misremembering it. No, it doesn't happen for like a good 40-45 minutes. Like, it takes a while for that to be like kind of the big thing in the middle of the movie, because I know that's what everybody remembers, but it doesn't happen for a minute. There's long sequences of Bambi just like playing with Thumper and like playing with Flower, and then just like, like you said, just plopping around in the snow and like figuring things out. Like, there's not a lot going on. And then when the mom finally dies, and you have this mysterious figure of like the great prince or whatever they call him, like, the big,
mhm.
buck, old deer kind of, is the sort of wise man of the group, who's been around for a while, just kind of then watching over him. This was remarkably similar to The Lion King, Jacob, when, because there's like a death of a parent and then like a time jump for a long time, and then all of a sudden they're like grown up, you know what I mean? And we
Yeah,
come back to them, and they sort of reunite with everybody. I was like, oh, that's kind of like not exactly the same as The Lion King, but kind of similar.
right.
Just as far as like the time jump and the family thing or whatever. And I didn't know where the thing with the Great Prince was going, but not really anywhere. He just kind of helps them escape the forest fire at the end. That's about it. And yeah, again, not much going on. There's little again, more like a collection of things he has to overcome. Like, he's trying to get with his girl, and there's like another asshole deer that like he has to fight and throw off a hill, and then the man people let their fire get out of control, and it burns the woods down, and he has to escape, along with the other animals, and that's pretty much it. And then the movie ends. Like, it's really just not much. Like, plot wise, it's just kind of like, and then this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and it's over. Like, it's not much going on. Again, better for kids than adults, probably. The kids will enjoy him and Thumper running around and, getting into mischief and shenanigans, but like not a lot to really dig into because, you don't even see the man characters. You just hear the gunshots.
Right.
And when I thought the more disturbing thing was actually not so much the mom. I thought there was a sequence when they're going in the woods hunting and the pigeons are like in their little house and the one is like freaking out and she's like, I can't stand it. Like, I need to go. And they're like, no, just like stay here. Like, don't fly away. She's like, I gotta fly away. And she goes, I'm going. And she flies away and you just hear the gunshot in the background. And you're like, oh, that's a little more disturbing than that one. You just like walked into the line of fire. I thought that was a little more disturbing even than the mom, like as much as the mom one is.
Yeah, these movies are fine for kids. I think, like you said, kids are gonna really enjoy them. I think the stories got a little meatier as they went on. I'm not sure if it was like because like full length animated movies were fairly new at the time. Like they weren't pumping them out like they can nowadays. I think we got Snow White in 37, and I don't think Pinocchio. It was 1940. Another 3 years until we got Pinocchio, and then I think they were able to like one a year or something like that. But yeah, it's like you're not going to go back and watch these movies for the writing or for the plot. They're fun to watch for the most part, and kids will enjoy them, and I think that's who obviously the target audience was, because I mean, like you said, going to the theater back in the day was there was a lot added to it other than just the feature presentation. So it's like, all right, we got something for the adults, and now we've got something for the kids, and these are very kid heavy movies.
Yeah.
So, although some of the sequences, I'm not sure how kids nowadays would react to seeing those for the first time, but
right.
Still, I think these are movies. I've said it before. I'll say it one more time that deserve, at least they deserve the respect and the recognition for kind of kickstarting animation, and who knows what animation would be like if Snow White had failed.
No, and it's funny. Snow White really became so successful as it was, not just from the initial run, but they kept re-releasing it during the 40s, like during the war, because they just needed programming. There wasn't as many movies like getting churned out, especially family or animated films. So they kept like re-releasing a lot of these movies, which is why they made so much money in the long term. Is like they were just, let's just re-release Snow White, let's re-release Pinocchio, and just keep them cranked out because kids needed something to watch, while Dad was at war, essentially. It's kind of a harsh reality, but that's kind of what it was. And there wasn't a whole lot else coming out, which is again why after that, during those war periods, they were just making those short films. They weren't making a lot. So you had like the Ichabod and Toad thing, and you had the Song of the South thing. Like you had all these like kind of more short film sort of things, not as much like narrated features, but like these little things that even now I think they eventually put out DVDs of like some of those on a compilation. Like it was just a bunch of little shorts. But they didn't crank out another feature, I think, till Cinderella in 1950, I believe.
Allison, it was either Alice in Wonderland. I think Alice in Wonderland might have been 49.
Cinderella is 50. I'm looking at the Wikipedia. Cinderella is 50. Alice in Wonderland is 51.
51. Okay, yeah, no, I always get those two confused.
Yeah,
the release dates.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't. So it'd be like 42 for Bambi.
Yeah,
and then not until 1950. Like Ichabod and Mr. Toad was almost a movie, but it was like kind of two shorts back to back. The Wind in the Willows, and then Ichabod Crane, which, by the way, like if they had just released that, like I love what they did with the Sleepy Hollow story in there, but the Wind in the Willows one, I'm like, I'll probably skip that one and just watch watch Mr. Ichabod because
Yeah, right.
I really like that one. Yeah, those package films in the 40s are. I did a ranking one time and I was like which would the way I do it is like, all right, which one would I rather watch? Nope, I'd rather watch that one instead of Make Mine music or whatever. I'd rather watch that. Nope, Melody Time, you're coming down
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Oh, Fun and Fancy Free. I'm so sorry. You're also down here because there's things in them that I like, but there's also things in them that I'm like, well, that was a choice.
yeah.
So no, probably not a era of Disney that we'll cover on the show. But
No, you could skip to the
yeah,
50s and the 60s and all that when they reconvened after everything settled down and then started cranking out some more feature films. Like I said, if we wanted to do another chunk in the future, the next four are Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Lady and the Tramp. So that would be an interesting little 4-pack of movies.
yeah.
So, and then the following ones after that are Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, Sword in the Stone. Mary Poppins is in there as a feature, but if we skip that and went to Jungle Book, Jungle Book would polish that one off. So that's
that's not bad. Yeah, it's always something to keep in the back of the mind.
Yeah, we could always come back to our animated series and break up the anniversary thing every now and then. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not going to say no to animated.
You're not going to say no to animated. So anytime,
just like if I proposed a horror show, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm down."
Oh yeah, we'll do horror. Yeah,
we've got our favorites, and so yeah. So no, I mean, I like you said, I respect these movies probably a little bit more than I like them. Although Pinocchio, I do really enjoy Pinocchio. I think, I think it was one of the 40s movies that made. Did it? Now that I'm saying it, maybe it didn't make the top 10 for that series in our tier ranker. But I think it was.
Maybe. I can't remember that one. Out of all of them, that one might have had the biggest chance to do that. Yeah. I think, and it might have skirted in there like number 10 or something.
That one, I think, and that one, and I think the Jungle Book because I fought for it. But no, it was still a fun conversation. I'm glad we were able to talk some Disney and give them the recognition and respect they deserve, at least. But we will start our anniversary series coming up soon, and we decided instead of grouping the years together like we have in the past, we're going to go 4 from each year this time because some of these years are just stacked and they absolutely deserve their own episode. So we will start like we do, going 50 years back. So in a couple weeks, we'll be talking some 1974 movies celebrating their 50th anniversary. Yeah, which is crazy to think for some of these. Like, I know that was 50 years ago. So the 4 movies that we have decided on as of an hour ago. We got a nice mix. So we will be covering a horror classic in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 2 Mel Brooks comedies, one that happens to be a favorite of mine, the other happening to be a favorite of Austin's, in Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, and then a first-time watch for me with Chinatown. So it's a nice mix of movies, I think. So that should be an interesting conversation. Jordan Anderson, if you're watching, I hope you enjoy our conversation about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, I think it's we just covered the remake, and then we're gonna go back and cover the OG one that is still like my favorite, and I can talk about why it's so good in my opinion and why it works.
They couldn't wait a year to make that remake. They couldn't wait a year.
Yeah, I know. We could have just covered them later.
Well, not that, but like it just seems weird. Like you missed it on the 30th.
Yeah, you could have done the 30th anniversary and just put it out that year. I mean, it really wouldn't have killed him, but it's well. Just had to get it out there.
No, I'm looking forward to that because those, there's 3 movies in there that I absolutely love, and then a remake, not a remake. Wow, I had remake on the main. Yeah, first time watch that I've heard nothing but great things about. So Jack Nicholson might be, the more I think about it, every time I watch a movie of his that I haven't seen before, I'm like, oh, he might be one of my favorite actors.
I had to settle down and realize that De Niro might be one of my all-time guys, and I might have to put him on that podcast we're gonna do with the versus thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because, dude, between the 70s and the 90s, like between all that stuff, like I don't know, man. He's got some of my all-time great like performances on there, so I might have to, hunker down and realize that he's one of my guys too. Like, when I think about it, so I might be making a substitution on that show. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm still thinking. I've got 3 that are set. That 4th one is like,
yeah.
Well, I've liked everything he's done. I've liked everything he's done too. Shoot, whether or not the movie was good, he was good in it, and it's like,
Yes.
So. But no, that should be a great time. We'll do that in a couple weeks. Kick off our anniversary series. So every 5 years leading up.
Yeah, so after that we'll be doing 79, and then we'll be doing 84, which is also a stacked year, and then 89, which is a stacked year. I mean, all those years are stacked. So I think we just settled down and we're like, because last year we would do like 2 from 74 and like 2 from 79, but these years are so stacked that it's like, well, we might as well just find 4 movies from each year. It's not that big a deal. Like we can just do that. We got it all year. Let's just do it and just cover twice as much stuff. Like why not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can watch twice as many potentially, more first time watches for me, which is something I've been trying to do this year. So that should be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. But between now and then, what else do you got going on, Austin?
Yeah, no, I mean, mostly obviously stuff here on the Movie Hero Network. We've got our Geek Character series this week, so that'll be a 3-parter Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wrapping up that series because we've done all those preliminary shows of like Star Wars and Star Trek and DC and Marvel and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and all this stuff. And then we're finally going to throw them all and do a 3-part and finally like cap off that series. So that'll be kind of all throughout the week this week. We got Lonely Marks, obviously. You'll be on there. We'll be talking. We'll be trying to do some early WrestleMania 41 predictions. That should be interesting, kind of like what we did. So trying to look into the future for that one. So that should be interesting. And then we'll talk about any of the news, obviously whatever comes. Well, it looks like we got a Bloodline Civil War brewing, so we'll talk about that. That could go.
And I may have been right with the Naomi challenging Bailey for the women's title. I didn't know it was going to be this soon, but I thought we'd get a rematch. We'll talk about it though.
Yeah, and then I think we might even have another Seen and Heard tournament match next Saturday, I believe. So we might even crank one out that quickly. We're trying to get those out as soon as we can every couple of weeks and keep that series moving. So that's about it.
Yeah, I will be not on any of those geek characters, but I will be watching to see who wins because there's a lot of movies in there that I like and a lot of characters that I like. Let's go Sam. Sam is like the best friend in movies from Lord of the Rings. Like I'm pulling for him to go far.
We'll see.
But I'll be back. Lonely Marks. Yeah, we'll do that WrestleMania prediction. Hopefully we get something right this time. Then
we might all get the main event right if where we think it's going to go.
Yeah,
we can at least get that right.
One of the main events.
Yeah. Because I think they're going to build up to a certain main event that we could all pretty much predict, but everything else might be kind of up in the air. We'll see.
And then, we'll also do our Dynasty predictions because Dynasty is.
Oh, that's right. Because we'll be watching Dynasty next Sunday. Yeah.
So we'll do our predictions for 75% of Dynasty, and then we'll predict the other 25 in the chat as the
day of the event as Tony on Twitter announces all the other preliminary matches.
Yeah. And then the 22nd we had to reschedule it just because of some personal things, but the 64 albums, that one is happening the 22nd. So
yep.
And hopefully it doesn't have to get pushed again.
No. It all depends on terrible parents. Anyways, we won't go into it. But
no, that should be a fun time. Yeah. So check out everything on the channel. Check out everything that we do on other channels too. Take 3, rank them. JPO's channel, we do trivia over there as well. support them as well. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell from this channel so you're notified when we go live. Check out, Tournament Fights, Tier Ranker, Podcast League now, Wheel of Movies, Seen and Heard.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, so lots of good stuff on the channel. If you're watching live, thank you. If you're watching on the replay,
thank you
as well. That is Austin. I will point the right way eventually. That's Austin. I'm Jacob. This has been a podcast about movies, and we will see you next time.